So before we kick this off, I want to remind everyone to definitely engage in the chat. Tell us where you're joining from. If you're watching for yourself or if you're joining for a C-suite in your organization, and make sure to drop your LinkedIn into the chat so you can network with other attendees. And we will also be dropping in our speakers' LinkedIns as well. So if you're not already following them, just do it. Now, remember, we have a ton of questions to get through with our speakers today, but if you do have any additional questions, go ahead and pop them into the chat and we will do our best to get to them at the end. So, moving on to our oh so smart and savvy panel. First up, we have our very own Jake Dunlap, the CEO of Skaled. Next, we have Preksha Kaparwan, the CMO of Alpha AI. And last, but certainly not least, we have the fabulous Jackie Hermes, CEO of Excelity Marketing. Now, I'm going to give each of them a chance to just briefly tell you who they are and why you definitely want to listen to what they have to say. So, Jake, I'm going to start with you. Let them know who you are.
Yeah, sure. So I'm looking forward to this conversation. Jackie, I know we've had some interactions in the past, but Preksha, I'm looking forward to learning from you as well. So I'm the CEO of Skaled Consulting. We're a sales strategy and consulting organization. And so we work with some of the fastest growing B2B organizations, helping to build replicability in different aspects of their sales and to kind of the bleed into marketing around LinkedIn in particular. For me, this topic hits home. I did a post this morning about my journey where I got so fed up with watching the performance of blog posts and ebooks on a weekly basis, and why we're spending so much time. And as I started to realize that attention and eyeballs were changing to where people were paying attention, LinkedIn just became that go-to source. And so I'm looking forward to sharing the insights that we've had for posting daily for the last 2 years and the impact on the business.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Preksha, I'm going to hand it over to you. Tell our lovely audience a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I hope my voice is better now. Is it? Great. So hi, everyone. I am Preksha Kaparwan, and I have a startup called Alpha.ai. You must have seen a few of my videos on LinkedIn. We have been doing it for almost 2 years now. And in fact, we started to build the company right around when I started to build some content for LinkedIn. So we have discussed with our network what we are building, how we are building, and they have stayed with us throughout our journey. So I have had few hits and few misses during this time. Looking forward to share it with all of you guys.
Thanks so much. And Jackie, I'm going to hand it off to you.
I'm Jackie Hermes. I'm the CEO of Excelity. We are a B2B software marketing agency. So we help mostly startups and scale-ups get to revenue and grow faster. There are 15 of us in Milwaukee. We actually built out a brand new office right at the end of last year that is now just sitting there. It's like a ghost. It's a little weird. Another thing that I do is actually I'm the co-founder of Women's Entrepreneurship Week as well here in Milwaukee. So I run programming for female entrepreneurs to come together. That's been really interesting to manage over the last 4 months or so, as well as we've taken everything digital, which is kind of cool because we got a greater reach to our content. And I think I started my LinkedIn journey July of 2018. So it's been almost exactly 2 years, and it's changed so much over the last few years. So I'm really excited to talk about it.
All right. Okay, folks, we're going to dive right in so our triple threat can start dropping some knowledge on us. First question, why is LinkedIn the most critical B2B platform for businesses right now? And I'm going to add a sequitur to that. Some experts and leaders argue that it's Instagram or Facebook. So do you believe there's any truth to that? Jake, I'm going to hand it off to you to start, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think if you said per capita, LinkedIn has to win, right? Are there certain industries that maybe are or aren't as active? And that's what we tell everyone. It's like, look, LinkedIn is probably it, but go test, go pull your last 100 customers and go see, are they active on Twitter, Instagram? Maybe it's not LinkedIn, but there's a very high probability that there are people. And I think where a lot of people don't quite understand is that most people on LinkedIn aren't content producers, right? I think it's like less than 3% of people actually produce content. So you have to go look at people's activity. And I think what a lot of people are shocked about is VPs, CMOs, CEOs of hundreds of millions of dollar companies are interacting on a daily and weekly basis. And so you have to understand that these people are there, and are you going to show up in their feed? Are you going to interact with them? Because just because they're not posting content doesn't mean they're not active. So I think those other platforms could be a fit. Hospitality maybe, right? Maybe engineering. There's a few other places, but I think for the most part, most of your B2B buyers are going to be on LinkedIn. It's just they might not be actively posting versus active.
Got it. All right, Jackie, you want to jump in on that?
I mean, I agree with a lot of what was just said. We test a lot of platforms for our clients, and often, well, almost every time it's LinkedIn. So looking at Facebook, we just don't see the reach, and there's a lot more personal involvement on Facebook, which can be a good way, like if we're running an ABM campaign, to reach out to them to sell, but it's not always a good place to get in touch with people in a business sense. So yeah, I would say that aligns, everything Jake just said aligns with our strategy as a company and the strategies we run for our clients.
Okay. Preksha, anything to add?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, before this, I was trying to do some content over on LinkedIn, on Facebook and Instagram. And let me tell you that today the company we have is an AI-assisted data analytics company, okay? And just before that, we had another company, again related to data analytics. It's a different product altogether. And I was trying to find hospitality companies on Facebook. And Jake said that maybe it's a good platform for them. It is for, products like tangible products, but for software, it is the worst place to be. And same goes for Instagram actually. But as soon as I came to, I started to write first post on LinkedIn, the entire system just like, everything fell into place for me. Things were becoming so much more clearer. People were engaging. They were actually excited to talk to someone in technology, and they wanted to understand what we are building, how we are building. So I think that the level of conversation is very different when you come to LinkedIn and what you can expect on LinkedIn. If you are doing a B2C kind of product, it works much better on these platforms because, you have to impress a single person, a single decision maker. But when you have a large product, which is a B2B SaaS product, in my case, you have multiple decision makers. So I just wanted to make sure that every person in one company has seen some or the other thing that we have created. And at some point they have contributed, like almost certainly that's true for all of my clients. At some point they have contributed to what we are building in one way or the other.
All right, thank you. I think the takeaway there is do your due diligence, do your testing, but LinkedIn is really stepped up its game in terms of B2B sales, and that's where you're seeing the most movement. Next question. This is why we're here today. Why is it so important for C-suite executives to create and share original content regularly? Jackie, let's start with you.
Sure. It's funny, I try to sell my clients on this all the time, and a lot of them don't want to do it. And frankly, I didn't want to do it either. I'm sure a lot of you know or know of Quentin alums on LinkedIn, just Q, or the black guy with the big hat. Well, I think he actually got rid of the hat during COVID, but he lives in Milwaukee, and he tried to convince me for a long time to get on LinkedIn, and I did not want to do it. So he started probably as one of the very first video creators, and I didn't want to be the face of my company. I didn't want to be a talking head. I didn't want to open myself up for the criticism that all of us receive, but I think as a woman with strong opinions, I knew I would receive a good amount of it. And so I fought it really hard, but when I finally stepped it up and said, okay, I'll do it, it just made sense for the company. We started building so much trust. We started getting more leads. And when a company has a face or faces, like our entire team is now on LinkedIn, it's so much easier to gain trust from all different kinds of clients. We used to have most of our client base around Milwaukee and around the Midwest, and now we have clients all over the place because they know us and they trust us from LinkedIn. And I think brands of every size can benefit from that.
Great. Preksha, you want to throw your thoughts in there?
Absolutely. So yeah, when we started, we were thinking that the entire idea was to just showcase something and validate the market for the product actually. But then we realized that here you have unbiased, unhindered access to every C-suite person. Like if you want to reach out to a Fortune 500 company CEO, you can actually do that. Maybe a couple of times they might not pay attention to you, but they end up seeing something that you're creating, end up liking something, and that certainly opens way up for you. But then also a lot of people who are silent, like, viewers of the content that you're creating, they sometimes aspire to create content as something that they seem is like, as a standard content. And most of the time that is a place where they feel that they pull themselves back, that if they cannot create something like this, they would rather not post anything. But then they are making themselves unavailable to everyone else. They are clothing themselves up. So tomorrow, if they want to, announce something new, they would not have an audience. So being a C-suite person already puts you in a kind of, bracket that you cannot come out of unless you open yourself up. So unless they start engaging a little bit, it will always seem like they will always seem like very unavailable, unapproachable people, and it will make it much harder for people to relate to what they want, how they should be connected to them. And every time someone talks to you, it will be for selling one thing or the other.
Okay, Jake, what do you got?
Well, we've covered a lot of it. I think a lot of C-level executives, I think Jackie's was spot on, because I felt it too, right? I thought that as a CEO, it was my job to promote my company. And if I wasn't promoting my company, I had a massive ego and, that I wasn't doing the right thing. And then when I realized, because again, like for me, like we did this, it was right about the same time as Jackie, we did a GDPR ebook, and this thing was amazing. Like it was like the best ebook of all time on like distilling down for marketing and sales, like leaders, GDPR.
Yeah.
And, we put it on social and it's like, 50 downloads or 40. I'm like, do you know how much time we spent on this thing? I'm like, no more. Short form LinkedIn post. People don't care about Skaled. They care about me. Like there was something that clicked almost immediately for me. Like after like another blog post posted with no interaction, another ebook. It's like, why are we doing this? And what I tell executives, I don't know if I made this up, but I've definitely borrowed it if I didn't, is like, look, because of COVID, it makes things a little bit more simple. If I went to you and I said, look, there's a 250 buyers that are in a room, and I'm going to give you a 5-minute speaking spot, would you travel across the country to have that conversation? Well, yeah, they're our target market. That is LinkedIn and putting a post on LinkedIn every day. It's the exact same. You literally can communicate. You can add all of these people who are buyers, and you can literally communicate with them daily. And I feel like it's that mindset of CEOs and executives and even frontline people getting over that this is about a speaking spot on, at a physical event, but we don't have physical events, and digital is just like what we have. And so I know, my plight is very similar to Jackie's. And, when we talk to executives, that's usually the conversation that we have, and how we try to get people to kind of maybe reframe that it's more about like positioning yourself as an expert, not bragging about yourself, and talking about what you know.
Right.
I'll just add to it, actually. I just wanted to say that, some of the technology startups and deep tech that we are connected with, I always try to convince them, if you do not have enough, vigor to promote yourself, market your product, you don't have to do the selling, but you just have to show trust in what you have created and maybe talk about what went into it. People will trust you more easily. You will be able to find people who really want that problem to be solved. In fact, some of our leads came this way, that the CEO and CTOs of different companies, and one of them was a Fortune 500 company, he connected us to one of the member of the team so that he can look at the product and do the POCs further from there. So in a way that when you put what you have done out there, they see your vision. You don't necessarily need to be a big company. You just need to be a person who they can trust.
All right. I love the idea of creating that accessibility and demystifying the C-suite. And, it makes good sense to build that audience. So when you have those big announcements, you have the eyeballs on them, but also creating that access and creating that dialogue between yourself and the decision makers. Moving on to the next one. I want to talk about how you got started using LinkedIn to help build your personal brand. So things we can cover is like, when did you realize you needed to start sharing content on LinkedIn? I know Jackie, you sort of covered this, and Jake, you covered this a little bit. And like when positioning yourself as a leader, you know, how did that get started, and was there a lot of trial and error? How has your content evolved? And this is another important one. How do you get your team to utilize LinkedIn, and do you pay them to build their personal brand? Like, is it worth the investment? And something, Preksha, you mentioned was building a niche. So I'm actually going to hand it off to Preksha to kick this off. And there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah, right. A lot of things. I might need a list of all the questions here.
I can go back.
I'll just start from the start, maybe. You know, like I was not, I was on LinkedIn since 2013, but I have not even done a single post till 2017. Then once I did one post and there was no engagement. So I was like, okay, fine, this is not the platform for people. You know, for someone like me, actually, because I was failing at Facebook, I was failing at Instagram already. I just did not know that this could be the place which I should be building on. But then I certainly knew that videos are catching on LinkedIn, and this was almost 2018, April 2018 or May. Like, you know, we all started around the same time, I think. So at that point, there were very few faces. I saw Jackie actually, in like a couple of months down the line, but there were very few faces on LinkedIn at that point. But I just wanted to share what we are doing, and very honestly, I came out with this one. A voice assistant product that we had created, a skill actually. We just wanted to see that how can we connect voice assistant to data analytics. And we tried that. And we got amazing response from people. There were leaders from all around the world. There were engineers, data scientists who were talking to us and who were interested in learning that what's going on here. So that was the beginning of it. And it just seemed like that, you know, while you're creating new things, you can always use some market validation, and this seemed like the right place for us because this was the right target market for us as well. But moving on from there, when we were done with the initial product building and all, and when we were done with the initial validation, it was time to give something more. So every 3 to 4 months, we kept changing our content. The content kept moving on from just creating something to how startups should operate, how to grow, how to handle certain business problems. Then again, from there on, we recently started some free data expert courses actually, and over 3,000 people on LinkedIn Live registered with us. And every class that we do garners at least 400 to 450 people watching us live. So I think that this happened like in COVID, just right before COVID actually. So we have already done 3 batches. So I think this was a good point for us to keep us to realize that what we have been doing in terms of changing strategy, because LinkedIn also keep changing their algorithms so often that it's difficult to figure out what works and what doesn't. But what is constant is your audience, right? So it's just the matter of figuring out what is working for them with the situation they are in currently. So we kept doing that. And while we did that, we also built our niche. And that's what I keep talking to a lot of, you know, new aspirants about, because when people want to go out there and write content or show videos or create some picture based post, PDF posts, they keep jumping from topic to topic. Sometimes they're talking about something, sometimes the tone becomes something else. And then they keep confusing their clients. So when you are changing, even if you're changing your strategy to change your content and evolve it to something, you know, much higher, you need to just make sure the tone remains the same. You know, what you are covering at the bottom, what people are interested in, what they were interested in, their needs is what you put first. So I think that is one thing which a lot of people miss, but like eventually it takes time, it takes time to find a niche as well, because sometimes what you want to sell doesn't get sold. It's entirely something else that people like about you.
Okay. Something you covered a lot of it, the trial and error, how your content has evolved, building a niche. Jackie, I want to send it over to you and talk about maybe getting your team to utilize LinkedIn. I know this was something we had discussed, and like, is it worth the investment to pay them to get in there and start building their personal brands on LinkedIn? And how do you lead by example in doing that?
Yeah, so I did kind of a mix. I led by example and then kind of forced them into it. Maybe not a best practice, but they were on board. So we do quarterly goals, and I made a goal for my team, I think at the beginning of last year, maybe, to publish 6 pieces of content on LinkedIn. It can be any format, video, text post, article, whatever you want. You don't have to show your face if you don't want to, but in order to show our expertise, and it also helps them kind of build their personal brand. A lot of them wanted to do it. And one of actually my creative director, she wrote about being a failed entrepreneur, and she did a really kind of deep video about how she started a company and she didn't like being an entrepreneur. And it went super, super viral, her first video ever. It was really crazy. So allowing them to get in and talk about, I don't regulate their content. I don't tell them what to post, when to post, anything like that. I want them to talk about what is interesting to them and what their expertise is. Because the more they talk about the things that they're good at, be it their day job or their side hustles, a lot of them have they're photographers, they're all creative. So a lot of them freelance over here, do different things. And the more I can get them out talking about that, the more credibility it builds for our agency, the more people are going to like them. The more we get on sales calls and they say, oh, Becca, I've seen her on LinkedIn. I really like her design aesthetic. Oh, I'm going to work with her. That's awesome. It all goes along with that credibility building piece. Now, all of them are not still doing it. We had that experiment just to try to get everyone used to it. And I would say maybe half of the team still regularly posts. We don't have any guidelines or anything like that, but we do have a channel in Slack where everyone shares their content and we can go and support each other and see what everyone's doing. So we actually hired a brand new, straight out of college girl last year, and she on her first day wrote a recap of her first day of Excelity on LinkedIn. And I was like, so proud. It's like raising LinkedIn babies. But yeah, I mean, that's how we went about doing it. I don't know if that's a fit for everyone, but it seemed to work well for us.
Okay. Jake, I'm handing it over to you. I just personally, from following you and working with you, you're a beast on constantly in my feed. Jake Dunlap content.
You can't escape me once you follow.
I can't escape you.
That's right.
Yeah, I love your take on this, building the personal brand and, how is your content evolved and what kind of trial and error have you been through?
Yeah, I think it's just important that one, there's no highs and no lows. Every post is you're learning something. And when you kind of take the mindset of that, and I took that from day one, I was cool, post does well, data point, post sucks, data point, post does well, cool, what did we learn on this, et cetera. Now we've got some tools that we can, do some more deep analysis on what's working and what's not. But, whether you like or don't like Gary Vaynerchuk really doesn't matter. But there is something that, that he gave me some advice very early on, which was don't pander to the algorithm and be there for what Preksha said is spot on. It's about your audience. I know that if I put a video out, it's not going to do as well as a text only post. I know that, but that's not what it's about. It's about connection. It's about when I put a video out, they get to hear me speak. They get to realize hey, the way that Jake writes is also who he is. And so for me, I've always been, producing video content for at least for quite some time. So I think, to what we've talked about so far is relevant. It's about mixing it up, and it's about really thinking and being thoughtful about your audience. Oh, did they react to that? Did they not react to that? What did they like? What didn't they like? Because that's who this is for. And I think it's that concept that a lot of people haven't figured out yet. As a CEO or as a sales rep, or if you're on the front lines, you're trying to build a community. If I'm a seller, if I'm on the front lines right now, I already know I would destroy my peers, and all I would do is hang out on LinkedIn because I would just connect with every buyer and put out content every day that was relevant to them. And I'd build a little community, and my peers would just be cold calling and emailing all day. And so I feel like you have to really look at that as because you did that, let's say if you were a sales rep in Tampa back in the day, you built a name for yourself. You went to chamber events, you built a reputation, you built a community. It's identical. And I think I've had that mindset very, very early on, which is try to produce content for the community and, understand the algorithm. It's important, right? To know what not to post. don't post links, right? Like there's some basic stuff like that like you kind of figure out pretty quickly, like links are like the kiss of death. But a lot of it is trial and error and being okay with it. You know, do we delete posts? I mean, 0.5%. Like if we're like, oh, like maybe we should have rewrote that, 0.25%. Other than that, it's like, just release it. And it's usually like a blatant thing. If it's a typo, I'm like almost all of my highest performing posts have had typos in them. Almost all. Right. So it annoys certain people, but
got one, they will let you know.
Yeah, no, trust me, I got lots of grammar police that love to tell me about like, yeah.
I was gonna say, you type A's. Don't be afraid of the typos. Just push it out there. Just experiment, be bold. Yes, Preksha.
I don't know how I feel about this.
Just wanted to add something to what Jake said. What Jake said is about videos, right? Like, you know, yeah, he's right in saying that text posts always get better views than your videos. And like in recent time, the views on videos have decreased even more. But, you know, almost every customer I've spoken to for the first time, they feel like they know me already. They talk about things that I've talked about on videos. And it's such an amazing feeling to, you know, have that kind of connection instantly. And I have spoken to people who I keep seeing on posts. I find it hard to connect with them. So it's important that people remember your face. They feel like that they know you. And that's why I keep doing videos consistently, even though they do not perform that well now.
I think that's a really interesting testament to the fact that your customer is on LinkedIn when you're speaking to them and they're like, oh, this video, and you talked about this, and I love this too. What an amazing way to be able to connect before you even have that first conversation about selling. Jackie, you said, I saw you when we were talking about typos.
She's like, no way, no typos.
I am a grammar nerd. I don't police other people because that's annoying. I'm constantly telling my kids, like, don't correct people unless you really have to because it's really annoying. But I read my posts 47 times and then someone messages me, usually my editor on my team, like, oh, hey, there's this little typo. I'm like, crap. How did I not see that? I always go back and fix them. I don't know.
Oh, I am in your camp there.
I used to ponder too much about the post earlier, but now I know that like if I don't push it out, I'm just gonna like leave it and do something else. But like it's fine, typos are fine for me now. I'm over it.
Small typos, right? Small, very small. Like
yeah.
Baby typos.
Yeah.
All right. I want to move on to something that is incredibly important, Jake, something you talk about a lot is execution, strategy, one without the other. It doesn't work. It doesn't make sense. So how does your content tie back into your business objectives? Jake, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I talk about, you know, and honestly, hearing Preksha talk, I'm fairly in a lane. It's like sales, a little bit of marketing and leadership, and maybe like mix in some career advice with everything that's happening, right? And like, that's kind of like primarily sales, and I'll go a mix of tactical, you know, and strategic. And I know if I put out a post that's more geared toward directors or VPs, it'll do less, and that's fine, right? If I do more tactical sales advice, it will do better, right? Or if I do something that I know is gonna to play to that. So for me, you know, we've just got, you know, kind of a mix of content where, you know, we know that we want to put out on a consistent basis, you know, roughly like, you know, probably 70% of our content is going to be sales or revenue related. 20% is leadership. 10% is like a hodgepodge of stuff. That's like a rough estimate of what we do. But we are going deeper on video too. Like our goal is to have at least, if not a video every day, a video every other day. And, you know, we're finding new ways to utilize Zoom. To utilize Zoom videos. Like we've upped our production quality to make it, you know, better, et cetera. And so, because again, for that reason. So I think, you know, again, it goes back to just be purposeful about your audience. And I think that's too many people just start doing it. And it's like when I see sales reps who sell a software to HR tech and they're talking about generating meetings online. I'm like, if you think a director of HR is like, oh, can't wait to meet with you, John, right? Like all this sales advice. It's like, that's cool. If you want to be the sales speaking head, then that's it. That's your audience. But know that you're going to alienate your buyers. And so I just think more people should just be intentional about it. And over time, we've just kind of developed this like rhythm of this is how we think about who we produce content for. And I think we probably even need it. We could probably even focus it more if we chose to, but I like to post random stuff sometimes.
Wild cards.
Wild card every once in a while. If I get, yeah, it's like more of like angry. It's more like rants more than anything usually.
Jackie, I'm going to hand it over to you. How does your content tie back into your business objective?
Well, it's interesting. It's very different than Jake because I'm not talking about marketing. Almost never, honestly. I'm talking more about my journey as a founder building a company, and we are helping other people build and grow companies. And so I kind of have it easy because I just get to document what I'm doing and the things that I'm thinking about, what I'm reading, what I'm listening to, the ideas that I have. And it speaks to those founders that we sell to, where I don't talk as much or as pointedly about marketing itself. I might talk about something related to my business 1 out of every 10 posts, even if that, honestly. I think a lot of people don't get my content strategy, but I'm kind of building something that I can take with me forever. You know, like I love my marketing agency, but I want to do more. I can see more companies in the future. I can see just, I don't know, I have some very big, crazy dreams that we can get into another time. But I think the more that I can talk, you know, along those like Gary Vee or Grant Cardone type lines where they're talking about sales and marketing, but they're talking about their experiences and how they're like doing the work to build a company. So that's my strategy.
I think that's so important. Relatability is how you connect with people, sharing those stories and reminding them that they're not the only ones going through it. Like we're all going through it. We're all learning together, and we can, you know, we're in the arena together. So I think that's smart because it does create such relatability and a connection with your audience. Preksha, I know you have something to add to this.
Yeah, I do certainly do, because my strategy is somewhere between Jake's and Jackie's. I love seeing the names like this. So it's somewhere between there, because I do want to attract the right customer set, but also I want to talk about the struggles I'm having with the company, how we are building and how we are growing, because in a way, a lot of people feel like a part of it, which I love, by the way, because they feel like they have seen Alpha AI growing, they've seen Preksha growing, they've seen how we have created something. But ultimately, I want everyone to remember that if you are talking about data, if you're talking about AI, if you're thinking about innovation, you have to talk to me. You have to figure out that, okay, I need to go find either Preksha, her co-founder, or maybe, you know, one of my team members. And that happens. Even people, if they are looking at a VR technology, they still tag me because they think that, you know, I have something to do with innovation, like all of them. But the idea is like, you know, build, I keep sharing the honest content as we are going, even the difficulties we are having and the fails we have had. But ultimately, I just need them to know that, okay, this is where I am. And this, if you have these kind of problems, if you have these kind of learning concerns, or something you want to adopt in the industry, you can come to me for, you know, these things. And that really works actually, because right after, you know, in past few months, when we are talking about the data expert course that I just shared, we were running, we did LinkedIn Live of those courses. And after that, I was flooded with a lot of requests around how to upgrade to data scientist, or how business executives can learn a little bit of analytics so that they can add more to their roles. So this kind of niche I created over there, and this stands true for my company. Tomorrow, if I am not there, my company still will talk the same language that I'm talking today. But then also, like, yeah, so I was just trying to add the, you know, times when I do not know what to post. I keep getting these nerdy jokes in my mind, and they always do the worst. Like people don't get it, but I just love posting that, because it cracks me up, and I just want to share it with people out there. And half of them know, okay, fine, she has come to that weird place where she's not going to make sense, but it's okay.
No, I can relate to that. Every once in a while, I'll post a dad joke on LinkedIn because I've never met a dad joke I didn't like. So a whole lot of honesty, a lot of authenticity, some humor mixed in there, but ultimately educating and connecting, as opposed to just hard selling, is where you want to be in terms of your objectives and your strategy. moving on to your best practices for the C-suite or anyone else. So in this, we can talk about like top do's and don'ts. Is there a specific cadence or specific format? I know, Jake, you're like links. Do you collaborate with other leaders on content? And like, what are your wild cards? That's something, Jake, you mentioned Preksha, you post jokes every once in a while. So I want to, I want to talk about your best practices. So Jackie, let's have you kick this off.
Sure. My best practices. Honestly, I, again, am documenting more and I experiment with types of posts. So you'll see that I put up video, text. I've had and I see a lot of text posts going viral lately, but I think that text posts don't always say exactly what I want them to with the word count, and it can be easy to misconstrue that sometimes. So there's a different format for every type of post. I go based a lot on what feels right to me. So if I have a lot to say, I'll write an article. I have 2 videos that I want to shoot today that I'm like, okay, it feels like video is the right format for that. I find that often posting in mornings performs a little bit better, and Sunday nights also perform pretty well because people are just kind of like checking back into their work week often on Sunday nights, and then the posts will keep rolling on Monday. And then wild cards are probably when I talk more about the experiences that are maybe things that people don't normally talk about. Like when I got divorced, I talked about changing my name as a professional woman with a presence on LinkedIn. And that was a very interesting journey. People had a lot to say about that. Like, oh, this isn't Facebook. And I'll touch on lots of different kind of stuff like that. I'm not afraid to kind of like stir the pot a little bit, not really intentionally, but just like, you know, calling things as I see it, I would say is one of my strong suits. So really catering to your strong suits, and everyone's posts, I think, perform differently. So figuring out what works for you. So on the phone with Dale Dupree, he was talking about how he wakes up every day. He doesn't plan any of his content in advance, and he writes every morning and posts first thing in the morning. And that works really well for him. I think you have to find what works for you.
All right. Do you have any don'ts? Any like absolutes? Do not stay away from this, abort.
I mean, there's the typical, like everyone says, don't talk about religion and politics, but honestly, people have kind of been touching on political, I don't know, not really political topics, but things that have been politicized. And I see that going, you know, well, again, if that's something that you are really interested in and it aligns with your message, I say go for it. My team is very vocal about their opinions. And I'm not regulating on any of that, because I think that every person should post what they believe and what they want to talk about without, a lot of people say that they're really nervous to talk about controversial things, especially on LinkedIn or any other social site, because it could tie back to their employer, or some employers would let people go for stuff like that. So I don't know.
Okay. All right, Jake, how about your best practices?
What Jackie said, I think, is so important, that, you know, the best practices are ways to amplify things, not necessarily how you should plan your content you produce, right? It's that you should do what feels right. And even like the links thing, like if you want to post a link, like post a link, like who cares? Like just it's going to hurt your reach, and know that, but like, and you want to reshare an article, like reshare an article, like who cares? Like it's kind of up to you. But I think the key is, you know, and I won't belabor the point, which is just really feeling comfortable, you know, writing, you know, your own opinions on things, and, you know, how comfortable you feel about going out with those opinions is really up to you. You know, for us, like, you know, we look at the data, you know, we look at what performs, what doesn't perform. You know, we've analyzed the algorithm to look at like dwell time, which is a whole new thing. But at the same time, it's a data point in how we post. It's not how we determine what to post. And I'm like, you know, Jackie, I'm like Dale. Like if the post that you see in probably 85% of mornings, I literally maybe I jotted some notes the night before, but I probably like honed it that morning, and I like it. It feels more authentic to me. And if I want to shoot a video in the morning, I'll shoot a video in the morning. I'll set up everything and I'll shoot a video. So for me, it's the mix of both. And I think for a lot of people, that might give them anxiety, etc. For me, I like to write that way. So don'ts, I don't know. I mean, the only don't, and again, maybe it's more of a pet peeve, is like, just be you, like, and that's what I'm with Jackie on the text post. There will come a day of reckoning for all these keyboard warriors. I already know it'll happen. If your only skill is writing broetry, which is, by the way, it is single line sentences that go this long that take advantage of LinkedIn's dwell time algorithm. It gets you to click more with bait, and then it's this long. It's going to go away. Like, LinkedIn will start to re-engineer the algorithm toward video, toward other things. If that is your one skill, you're not building community. Like, I'm not going to say you're not building community, but what I will say is, like, you're pandering. And if you're pandering, when things change, you will get exposed. And like, and so I know it'll happen. Every social media platforms matures. LinkedIn is just like way beyond, or like behind. So I just think that diversification, and if you really care about your audience, giving them exposure to different facets of you, I think is really important. So my don't is, don't pander. Don't pander. That's my.
I would add to that, though. I love writing like that for emphasis. So,
me too.
Like grouping a few sentences together and then one standalone sentence for emphasis. I think that there are different uses for it. And also, when you were like, oh, I might wake up one morning and shoot a video, I was like, to be a man, how wonderful is that? Because I'm about to shoot like 10 videos with different shirts on today because I curled my hair for the first time since March. So
yeah, I love it. I love it.
Preksha, you go ahead and weigh in on this.
Yeah, so I do it kind of way Jake does it, every morning I wake up and I'm like, okay, fine, this is what I'm going to talk about today. Sometimes I have, premonitions in my dreams and I'm like, okay, this is what it's going to be. But whenever I'm launching a new feature or I'm talking about something new about a product, that's only the time when I will plan my videos, because you have to like get like really slick to shoot the videos. So I just pick a day and I'm like, okay, today is the day you're gonna look nice or you're gonna shoot the video. But I skip few days in a week because that's like, I also am a co-founder of the company, so I have other things to take care of. So I skip few days, but I make sure that every other day at least I'm putting out some kind of post out there, just letting them know what I'm doing. Or maybe if I skip 2 days in a row, then I'll let them know that what we have been up to, and that's why we were not present over here. But I definitely like to skip posts, putting text posts, even though it gives me more views, because it doesn't help people, and they do not. It's my experience. People who do well with text posts, they do well, and nothing will change that. And then there are people who will not do well because people, your community, your trust is based on how people see you. It is not about like, if you write something tomorrow, your pattern has changed and everyone you have in the community is already used to one kind of content absorption, right? They are not going to change overnight and say, okay, today I'm just gonna be a text person. They don't change like that. But also it gives you reach. So sometimes you just need reach. Then, like I keep telling one of my, my co-founder, he's the technology guy, the one who has created it. And there are a couple of founders in the deep tech club that we have over here with one of the Microsoft cohorts. So everyone was so pumped up last week that we are going to write a post, we're going to do something, because, Preksha has told us that you have to, if you want to be visible, just write a post, just show yourself out there, talk about your product. And all those posts were so technical, so beyond people, no one can even engage on that. People don't know what to say. They just read the first line, and I wanted to move on. I don't know what people must be thinking. They're like, okay, we like this guy, but it's too much text for us to read and then respond, because first of all, I'm gonna have to go Google a few of the definitions, and then only I can respond. So I think it's especially a challenge with the more technical people, that they write everything as a statement. It's not an engaging post where you can have a conversation. And also it's very important that like I keep telling my team about it, and they never do it. So, but that's one thing that works the best. Whoever you want to get in touch with, go engage with them, write on their post, give your honest opinions, talk about things that interest them. And also it helps you understand what the person is about. So finally, when you talk, you both will have common things to talk about.
Right. No, that's a great point. Not just pushing your own content out, but actually engaging with other people's content. So the theme here, authenticity, no pandering, and figure out your sweet spot, figure out what works for you. All right, well, we have some time, so we are going to move on to some questions from our guests. So the first one is from Natalie Burge. Natalie, I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong. Our executives see LinkedIn thought leadership as merely sharing industry-related articles once in a while. They don't feel comfortable sharing their own thoughts and opinions about topics that are of interest to potential buyers. What advice do you have for them to get comfortable with it? Jake, kick it off.
All right. So this is probably the most common challenge for, I think, every executive. Like, every executive's comfortable sharing this. Jackie and I told our stories about, like, that's what we did too, which is we shared industry or things that we posted. You know, to me, some of the things that we've been successful with other CEOs, and we have a mix of clients on our LinkedIn work. We have CEOs, we have sales teams, marketing teams. With CEOs, sometimes by priming the pump for them and helping them to see what posts look like and helping to do for them, I think can be a really good strategy. That I think by saying, great, we're going to take these 4 articles and we're going to turn them into something that's in your voice that still stays true to these 4 articles, these pieces of content, I think can be a good way to get them comfortable with it. What I've consistently found with LinkedIn, once someone gets a taste of it, once they get this much of like, wow, I was posting this and it got 5 likes and it's all from employees. I posted this, it got 20 and it did 2. Like, I find it, the convincing becomes less. So I think doing 4 people at times is okay.
Okay. Jackie, Preksha, anything to add to that?
Yeah, what we do is at every company, we find a champion. So even if it's not a C-level person, even if it's a marketer, a salesperson, someone entry level, that we can test with them that's willing to do it, because every company has that more outgoing person or the person who's more willing to get on video. And when we can prove success with them, we often will work to get buy-in from the C-level beforehand. So LinkedIn is a very small part of what we do, but to support all of the other content and strategies that we're creating for our clients, LinkedIn is an important piece. So at the beginning, if we say, okay, one of our clients, their marketer's name is Delaney, and if we can get Delaney to get all of this interaction from your prospects on LinkedIn, will you then allow us to help you with your LinkedIn? Sure, and I think a lot of CEOs say, prove it, like show me what's actually going to be the result of this. And if you can do that, then I think you'll be more successful.
So though I have a different kind of work altogether than Jake and Jackie. So what comes to me, like how I help my peers is mostly to, tweak a little bit of what they're already doing. I just help them understand, like, if this is something you want to share, how would you voice it? How would you tell that story? Because, it's important how you feel. So if they see it as a different, job altogether, that they will have to take apart, take off some meetings and then create some content, it's not going to happen. But I encourage them to do, like, if you are going through posting something over there, maybe, just like write it in the way how you felt like it, because there are multiple people who will resonate with that. And when you talk about something like you are trying to have a conversation, people respond. Like, no matter what day it is, what time it is, people will respond to it. In fact, one of the experiments we did just 2 weeks back, not even experiment. So one of the company's founder, he posted a video of computer vision based product, and in the entire product, there was some person who kept talking about this happens like this is how you're going to use it, this is how, it's all technology gibberish. And I told him, just put 10-second video of it and just write few words about what you're doing, and it's going to work for you. Because that's all people need to get excited about something, to to get to see the real juice, and not something that goes on for 10 minutes and then you see the what is the main thing out of it. So that's something we keep telling our peers actually.
Okay. Next question. This is from, and again, Pierre, I'm sorry if I butcher your last name, Pierre Le Pinic. He's from France. How do you manage content production to remain involved, consistent, and relevant? How do we keep it timely?
I'll just come out.
Preksha, go ahead.
Sorry, Jackie. I'll pass it on to you, because I just wanted to say that I am not consistent with it at all. I am not the right person even to suggest how to be consistent. But yes, I just know that I need to talk to people over there. So I just make sure that something goes out. But there is not such schedule that you have to, make yourself overworked about.
Okay.
So pre-COVID, I had a much different strategy than now working at home. But previously, I actually had members of my team that held me accountable every week. We had a meeting where we talked about what's relevant this week. What do we want to shoot on? We planned out all of the posts. So, and a lot of that would change. I'd wake up one day and be like, I don't want to write on this today, so I'm going to change it into something else, which I'm sure annoyed them, but they were very good sports about it. But now I am doing none of that, honestly. I have notes on my to-do list on the days that I want to post and the types of posts I could consider. And then I have a running list of the ideas of content I want to produce. So I don't know. I think once you start creating content, you kind of think in content. Like when we were talking about, someone said something about dreaming in content. And that happens to me all the time, or I'll wake up and be like, oh, I should shoot a video on that. It's very strange. But if I keep those lists together, and then on the days that I want to produce content, I'll go and look, and say, okay, today I'm going to produce something like this. I make sure that I post at least 3 times a week. And honestly, during the tough weeks of COVID, it's only been 3 times a week, and I'm okay with that as long as I'm trying to stay relevant and stay out there.
Okay. Mr. Dunlap?
We are very regimented. We post 2 times a day, morning, afternoon. Sometimes we'll sneak in a third, but it's planning. It's a mix. We do a little bit of what both of them mentioned, which is, we kind of have those spontaneity, but then we go ahead and schedule out repurposed content too. And I think we've created, and I'm sure Jackie and Preksha too, we've created so much content over the last 2 years that we can repurpose things too. And an idea you shared from a year and a half ago is still usually very relevant if it's evergreen value. And so, we try to diversify and mix up content to just stay consistent.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Preksha.
Sorry.
No.
I just think it's easier for me to say that, I don't have to change my content very often. Reason being that I already know what my viewers are looking for, because, it's a very niche space that I've picked, data and analytics. And that just seems like, unless I'm really deviating from it and talking about some current social issue, I would rather create content around it and the innovations in that field only. So it's just easier when you pick a niche actually. Otherwise, it just, Jackie and Jake are in a much larger space, so it becomes really difficult for them to do something which is only cater to one section of the network. But for us, and for someone who picks a domain, I think it's much, much easier.
Okay. Jake, I do have a question for you. It's a follow-up about repurposing. When you do repurpose content, do you change the format? Or do you keep it in the same format, maybe refresh a little bit? Or does it matter?
Depends. Sometimes it's the exact same, or a play on the exact same. We do that a lot with Twitter. Twitter's priority 4 for us. So I just don't have the bandwidth to stay active on Twitter. I don't have it. Right. And so when you think of all these different social media platforms you can be on, for us, it goes LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. And that's just very purposeful. And so if it's for Twitter, we'll just repurpose a LinkedIn, kind of a little snippet or something like that. So we try to just repurpose it as much as possible. And candidly, to take posts from LinkedIn and repurpose them into 20 tweets is an hour and a half's worth of work. It's not a significant lift for someone on the team to do to stay active there. And then I hop in probably once a day or every other day to just like do some original and make sure I interact.
I'll take notes on that from you, actually.
It works.
All right. Well, we are just about at time. So I want to thank all of our experts, Jackie, Jake, Preksha. Thank you so much for being here today and for dropping all these knowledge bombs on us. I want to thank our audience for being here as well and for sending in great questions. I'm sorry we didn't get to them today, but I assure you they will be addressed likely in future content. So I want to remind everyone that we will be sending out the recording tomorrow morning. So there's lots of great information from today. Review it, absorb it, and implement it. All right, everybody. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.